Good afternoon.
Welcome,
Welcome
welcome.
to H&D Abroad. I'm Herman.
I'm Dee, and we are glad to have you join us this week.
Absolutely.
After a very exciting presentation we had last week with the men, we are just trucking right along. Why don't we introduce ourselves?
Yeah, yes.
Uh,
Again, we're H&D Abroad. If this is your first time joining us, we are glad to have you here. We welcome you. We ask you to subscribe and to
like this
like
video
this video.
and hit the notification bell because we go live every Saturday.
Please let other people know, share. This is just our conversation and our journey about our move abroad experience.
Yeah, so we have not chosen a place, but we do have an exit date in mind. So 2024 is going to be our year to say goodbye to the United States. And so along the way, we are building community, reaching out to our community, and we are so excited to invite people we have known for many, many years. So we are going to our trusted sources and want to introduce you to them. So why don't we go ahead and bring everyone in? But to introduce our channel, we help couples consider moving abroad as a plan A for just developing a more healthy or well balanced lifestyle, and as a part of their strategy for building generational wealth. So, if that is content that you want to engage in, that's what we're here to do. So, we're going to start off with
So this is our family. This is
literally
family
our
because we've
family.
known him so long. We have Brother Jason Thomas here.
So,
Uh,
Jason, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us where you're located and how long you've been. How long has it been since you left the U.S.?
Big up, everybody. Good to be on the call this afternoon. We are here. Well, I'm by myself, unfortunately, at the moment. My lovely wife has left, took my son, and they went to the States for a few days.
hmm,
But we officially live here on the beautiful island of Jamaica. That is home for us. We have been home since 2018. Because we live so close to the US, it's very easy to make weekend trips, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
So Carmen and my eldest Jalon have left. They went up to DC. They left on Wednesday. They should be back on tomorrow. But we live in Kingston, the northern part, uptown Kingston, as we call it here, is where we live. And this has been an immeasurable experience for us since we've been here.
Yeah,
well,
we thought we would be able to spend more time with Carmen and Jason. We actually moved close to where they lived when they lived in the States, and they
Sure.
said goodbye. So, I mean, literally, we were like, what is moving abroad? I mean, it's got to be something to pack your whole family up to leave. So, I'm looking into getting into that story. So, um,
all right. Next on our list is really family. Really family. This is my cousin Maria and her husband Leslie. We let you all introduce yourselves. Come on off mute and tell us a little bit about where you are and just in general why you're there.
Okay. My name is Maria Holder, and this is my husband, Leslie. And Leslie is actually the Bermudian. We live here in Bermuda. So I will let him tell you a little bit about Bermuda, and then I will tell you how we arrived here.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Yes, so as Maria stated, I am from here, so born and raised on the island of Bermuda. It is also very close to the US, so we're within a 2-hour flight of most East Coast cities. Not Miami, but further north, New York, DC, Toronto. Um, those areas are much closer. Um, some of the traditional things that you think of when you think of a Caribbean island does not always apply to us when it comes to weather and tourists and things like that. But there are certain other similarities, as far as the people go and language, some of the culture. So I would call it a sort of hybrid, I think, between a Caribbean island and the U.S. We are very, very small. So all the things that you can think about that relates to a small town probably applies to us fully. There's only 60, 70,000 of us on the whole island, and a third of that, well, not quite that much, maybe 10,000 expats. So, it's a very close-knit culture. And I guess as we talk more about some of the more specific things, then I can get into there as it goes.
Okay.
And I guess I can talk about how we got here later after everyone is introducing, their initial story.
Okay.
If you like.
All right. And rounding us out today are Alan and Loretta. Love to have you on. Tell us a little bit about where you are.
Hey, so again, we are Alan and Loretta, and we are in Mexico. Right now, we're in the state of Sonora. Between here and the state of Jalisco in Guadalajara. So we have been back and forth between both. We are the only ones that can drive back to America. The rest of you all got to fly. But it's a few hours drive for us where we currently are in Sonora. Like I said, we're in a border state to Arizona, and again, like I said, we spent almost half the time between here and Guadalajara, and at this point, I mean, it's you all have English. We don't have English. All we have is Spanish, and but it's a good deal. It's a good deal. As far as Leslie mentioned about the size of the town. Our town is about the little town we live in is about 60,000 also. So it also is a small town. It's like that Cheers experience where everybody knows your name.
Except we're the only
Yeah, I'll say
we're the only black, so we're like the really obvious people here. So
yeah, so it's one of those things that, and we joke about it. We're in a position that we have to do everything right, because if we do anything wrong, people will always know it was the black people, and so that automatically puts us at a disadvantage if we do anything wrong. But it's a great little deal here, and we're enjoying it here. You didn't think?
no. Except that Guadalajara, like he said, that we're in between both spots.
Yeah.
We only came here because our older children are in Arizona right now. And so it's closer for us to drive back and forth to them. But as soon as the university, when he's done, we're headed back down south, because we don't want to be in the border state. And Guadalajara is a very beautiful city. It's big. It's similar to a Houston.
It's the size of Houston.
Of Houston. And so we found our little niche in there. So we kind of like being there more than we are here.
Okay. Well, then we'll start with you all then. So you all, as you said, you're in a place where you are more obvious than our friends in their Caribbean islands. You're a little more identifiable. What made you choose Mexico?
Mm-hmm.
What was the motivation to Mexico?
The first thing I think of is, and it may be other stories as well, is, and I'll use just one simple phrase, the rat race. The goal was to get out of the rat race.
Yes.
Even though we were in Arizona, I mean, I'm from Jersey, New York area, and Loretta is from Louisiana, New Orleans, and so we've come from big cities. We know what it's like, and the thought was, don't want to be here anymore. I mean, every day you work, and you work only to pay off your bills. That's it. You put money in the bank for savings, but you're always working. And Mexico, obviously we were in Arizona, and there's a lot of Mexicans who live in Arizona, and getting a chance to see how they live, the greatest thing that was the attraction with Mexico, not only its location, but was the way that the people are. And we've been here now for what, 5, almost 6 years. We don't wear watches. We don't care about the time. You know, everyone is family oriented, and that's one of the things that we really loved about the people and the experience, that we thought Mexico was definitely the one, because of the family orientation. Everyone enjoys family. They're very big. You know, technology. Oh my goodness. You don't see all the time kids walking around with cell phones in their hands and their faces down. Kids are actually playing in the dirt, and they're playing, running around. I mean, people actually take time for people. And if you can give me 1 minute, I want to make this one quick statement.
Go ahead.
One quick one. We were, you know, one thing that I've seen, whether it's here or in Guadalajara, which is the big city, is that it's not uncommon to find cars driving down the side of the road and stopping in the middle of the road just to talk to their friend on the side of the road. People are not in a rush for life. They just want to enjoy each other. And that right there was enough to say, you know what, I never want to go back. If I got to go back to the rat race, or stay here where people actually want to talk to you, and again, they'll stop in the middle of the road. Cars will go around. There's no horns honking. No one cares. Talk as long as you want. Enjoy life, and we'll go ahead and finish our life. And that's the way it is. And so, I mean, that was a drawing point. And that's what, in my opinion, that's one of the major things that's keeping us, just the lifestyle.
And the other thing too was for our children. So our oldest two were here, and they came there, I think their junior and senior year.
Oh, it was earlier.
It was earlier?
Yeah.
Okay, so earlier, a year earlier. And they were here. They were here with us. And we thought it would have been a great thing for them, because our younger kids, they didn't know anything. So having our older kids, we kind of got to see it from their point of view, to see how it is, you know, just living abroad with children. And it was really difficult for them, because they've been homeschooled all their lives. And they finally got to a school. And then we took them out of the school because we moved abroad. And so for them, it was a little bit challenging. But I wanted them to experience something unlike any of their peers. You know, learning a different language, learning to be around a different culture, learning to just enjoy life and stop seeing it in the entitlement. We never wanted our kids to feel like they're entitled to something, like this. Something is owed to you. No. And so that was one of the second reasons why we moved. We wanted our children not to feel like they were entitled, to see that there are people who have less than you, and they appreciate life. They don't feel like this is owed to me. Like, so for us, it was a great experience. They, however, moved back because they didn't like it. It was too slow. It wasn't, you know, the kind of things, you know, they're
adults.
Yeah, they're all yeah. So for them, it didn't pan out. But our little ones, when we go back to visit the older ones in the state, they hate it because they have to do the seat belts and the car seats, the booster seats. They hate the booster seats. Here we don't have boosters. We don't have to do the seat belts, and
they come in the front seat with me.
They can come in the front seat. They can do all this stuff, and then when we go to the States, you know, you have lock and chain type of thing, and they hate it. They truly hate it. You know, and everybody's always blowing their horns, and they're so impatient, and it drives us crazy every time we have to go back to the States. I hate it. So being here is just, I mean, that is another reason for us.
Okay.
That culture shock, I hear a lot of people talking about when you get settled in a new place and then you go back. Oh. You think, you know, I've spent all of my life in the US. I've only been away. And they're like, Maria and Leslie's story is slightly different because the motivation, you all were seeking something. Maria kind of captured something and then went to Bermuda.
Yes.
Well, the first thing that I want to say before I start that is that I want to encourage you, Loretta and Alan, that even though your kids went back to the States, you exposed them to something so that they could learn some lessons, and they did get them. Mm-hmm. You know, the Bible says, train up a child in the way he should go. And so you exposed them, and they did get it. even though they say, yeah, that's not for us, they got it. And they'll take those lessons with them. They might not choose to live that way, but they did get it. So all is not lost.
One quick thing. Can I
Yeah.
say one quick thing to that?
Yeah.
And I'm done. They, even though they hated it, the one great thing they took from that, they're both completely bilingual. So now wherever they go, they're translating. So for me, if nothing else, they're bilingual. And I told them, you know, you can get a job anywhere in the world because you're
Exactly.
now bilingual.
You're bilingual. And also, I bet they appreciate what they have more because they got to see, you know, another way of life. And so they appreciate what they have now more. And so it wasn't lost on them, the experience that you gave them. As for us, I ended up here not because I was looking for what you were looking for. I found my husband and I was willing to go wherever he wanted to go. And I wasn't tied to where I was. And so I ended up living here. I would have lived anywhere, Toronto, where you want to go. And he wanted to come back home. And so we've been here for the entirety of our marriage. Our boys were born here. So even though our boys are also American, they are Bermudian boys who really only know life as Bermudian boys. And so if we move to the US, or we move to the UK, or we move to Canada, or wherever we move to, if we move, the experience will be much like you guys, and how your children would have to adjust because they only know living here in Bermuda, and they would have to adjust as well.
Can you talk a bit about the culture shock? And there's somebody mentioned culture shock moving to a new country. I think that the shock here may be greater, not because it's a greater change, but I think because the expectation is different. So when you come here, it feels like the States, and you're like, oh, it's the same thing, you know, and then you realize that it's not. And if you weren't quite prepared for it, then I think it could have an impact on you that you don't quite anticipate.
Yes. So moving to a place like Bermuda, first of all, everyone thinks, oh, you're moving to Bermuda. Bermuda is paradise. You're going to be living in the lap of luxury. You're going to be at the beach all day, every day, you know, sipping on, you know, you're going to, that's what they think, right? And they think that's what my life is for the last almost 22 years. And that is not the case by far. But there's also an expectation that because we're so close to the States, that your life will mirror that in some way. Because also we get all of our goods from the States. Les talked about how it's such a small place. It is such a small place that they don't really make anything here. They don't grow very much here. Everything that is here is really imported. And because it's imported, everything here is expensive. And when I say expensive, that is an understatement. Wow. So for me, that was a huge culture shock because I came and I saw the products that I was used to buying.
Just not at that price.
just not at that price and not for that sustained amount of time. So I'm thinking, when you go to Mexico, you're like, what is this? I remember going to Costa Rica and being like, what is this? I don't even know what this is, right? I'm going to other countries and I got to figure out what it is before I can even buy it. I get here and I'm like, I know what this is. This is the same thing I've been buying all my life, but what price is this? I need a translator. Where's the currency counter? what's the trend? What? No. And it's dollar for dollar, US to Bermudian.
We are definitely going to be asking. That's on our priority list. What is the conversion rate between, Loretta and Alan were probably one of our first reach outs about Mexico. And she was like, girl, that conversion rate will change your life. Like dollars going farther can make a difference. And just hearing your stories over the years, Maria, that impacts everything. Like when you come back to the States, what is it going to cost you to get on a plane? When you are, when you're taking care of your everyday groceries and things like that, so the impact of not only could I live in a place, but like, could I really afford the lifestyle that I'm looking for? So, I mean, Carmen and Jason.
Want to first welcome Carmen. Glad you're here. Good to see you. I know we heard you're traveling. Glad you were able to join us. So we pull you into that conversation as well, guys. What was your motivation for moving to Jamaica, for moving from the States? What was your motivation? What drew you to that point?
Carmen, you start first.
Okay, first of all, can you guys hear me? I'm in a restaurant.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Good to see you.
Thanks. I think for me, I really began to have a lot of anxiety about my boys. I have two sons living in the United States, and I think that was the first problem I had with the boys. I have a son who is, I feel like, would question someone who may approach him in a way that he may not necessarily notice as being either hostile or and he just wouldn't recognize it. That used to give me a little anxiety because things would happen where he would come home and say, well, a person said something to me, and me being American, my antenna would go up and say, okay, that was racist, that, or I don't know if that was racist, maybe that was racist. I think that was probably my biggest problem with living in Alabama. The second thing for me is I really got tired of the political environment in America. Just drove me crazy. I could not explain to my kids why certain things were happening the way they were happening, because we really teach justice in our house, and things happen and they didn't seem fair. It was hard to explain that to kids who are saying, but mommy, you said bullies never win, but we just elected a bully as president. How does that work? That type of thing. It was tough, and I got tired of it, and I'm sure Jason has his own take on it, but for me, I was ready to make the move after constantly having to deal with that.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is a subject matter that we can talk about probably for the next 2 hours, guys. But I will touch on just a couple of points. Quality of life. We all agree or have heard in the past that living in the U.S. is the best place. But I can assure you that is not the case. The quality of life for us living here in Jamaica is far better than what we could have expected. The fear that many of us have is that when you leave the U.S., you lose your friends, your network, is not there because you live in another country. Now, here's what I will share with you. Come living in Huntsville for some period of time. We have had more people visit us here in Jamaica than we did in the United States. Repeat that again. And I will go on record for this. I cannot think of another country that more people come and visit on a regular basis than here. The moment a person hears that we live here, this is where they come to visit. Everybody stops in Ochi, they stop in Mobay, they come visit us here in Kingston. So our network has not changed. But living in the US, what I found was that the mentality is different. People are scattered. Living in the Caribbean, you have more viable relationships,
Wow.
more viable. People make time for each other. So the couple just said, pulling over on the side of the road. That's bonding, that's nurturing. You don't get that anyplace else. We don't. Should we talk about food? Should we have that conversation?
Come on, man.
I don't think any of us want to have that conversation.
Come
We
on,
don't even
man.
need to go there.
Come on, man. Yeah.
Do we even start that conversation and talk about the food?
Yeah.
When you get to the point, let me give an example for everybody that you can relate to. On a Wednesday, when you're finishing school and you may have choir practice, you may have a function to go to, your kids are hungry, what do? You stop and you rush to get some food at a Chick-fil-A or some other rubbish place. Am I right? That's what we do. There's always junk food involved. And what happens is that your kids give you 4 or 5 names of places they want to eat food from, and all of it is garbage. But when you live in a place like Jamaica, Daddy, I'm thirsty. I want some coconut water. Want a patty. Daddy, can we stop at the cook shop? There's some food that they know that they want to eat, and it's not garbage at the end of the day. We have gotten away from processed foods. We don't eat that. We don't need to.
Yeah.
The choices that we have here are fresh food. Not only that, and if you live outside the US, you can relate to this. We have helpers. We have somebody that comes and cooks, cleans, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Every morning we wake up, the helper's there, prepares a meal, breakfast is ready. We pop home for lunch. As a matter of fact, Carmen has it better than me. We have an office, and she has a helper in the office that prepares lunch for all of the employees. Who does that? We're not talking Google. This is not Google over here.
Yeah.
That does this. Regular brick and mortar operation where we have maybe 3 employees and a cook inside the place that cooks lunch.
Yeah.
Come home, we have dinner at that. Different quality of life. So the other thing comes in the rearing of children. You want to raise your kids where they have a knowledge of themselves. And for us, living in an environment like this gives them that. It gives them the structure, the foundation. It makes them comfortable in their history. They learn it here. They walk into a bank, they see images of themselves, right? They talk to professional people that look just like them. They can emulate at the end of the day. All of that's here. Carmen and I went to the gym the other day, and she walks in, and she is startled as she walks in the gym and sees a very prominent figure, and she can't contain herself, and she's running into the fastest man in the world, and just starts to have a conversation with him, with Usain Bolt, there in the gym. These are the things that we are exposed to. And so for us, yes, if we need to go to Walmart, notice that both Carmen and I are not in the same frame at the moment. We're not in the same frame as the rest of you are, because she took a quick trip to the US and she'll be back again on Sunday. And so there's nothing that we're missing at the end of the day. There's nothing that we're missing. If you want to have the Walmarts, then we just go to Walmart and get that. But for quality of life, this is where we're at.
And I'm sure what we're saying exists for the other countries as well, for
Yeah.
our guests that are on the line. But for those that are listening, your audience, they get to pick and choose. Come visit all of us at the end of the day. Our home is always open.
We are finally able to afford to visit Maria and Leslie, because there was a time when we couldn't afford to go see them. But I was shocked. So we talked to Loretta and Alan about Mexico. We land in Mexico City, and I'm like, why is there a Costco and a Sam's? Why is there every bank that's in the US? Like, what do you think you're really missing out on?
And even better than that, he's talking about the food availability. We had to get up at 4 and 5 in the morning to go around the corner to the
Immigration.
to the consulate to be able to complete our visa process. And standing on the street. Now this is the Florida boy in me. Okay, so Carmen's going to understand this fully. Jason's going to understand this. Jamaica, you're going to understand it. On the street was a man cutting fresh papaya, fresh pineapple, fresh mango, fresh lime, making fruit cups on the street. The smell of that was like we had walked past a fruit market. That viability for freshness is one of the draws. Me being in the quote unquote culinary world, that's a big draw to me. Being able to access the true organic, the truth of what is organic. I'm going to shift just a pinch here because I'm listening to the conversations here. A big question that we get all the time is with couples is, how do you convince your partner to move abroad? A lot of times that's to be honest, a female to male conversation. There are a lot of women who want to move abroad, and how do I convince my husband that we need to move abroad because he's comfortable or he's working or he's so that's a big conversation. But last week I interviewed a panel of Black men who moved abroad with their families, and one of the gentlemen, he moved to Mexico alone with his daughters, and his wife came a year later. What was the conversation? Was it a joint conversation between you all as couples? Was it a, hey, I saw something, I think we ought to make this move? How did you decide to make that move?
I think for me, Jason have been asking for quite a while, a couple of years. He brought it up, and I thought that it was crazy because I didn't know. I'm thinking, you're thinking like you're gonna live the way we live in the U.S. and you don't live that way. And I think that it's because you can't see that. It's because you can't see the way we live in the U.S. doesn't work in Jamaica. So that's one of the reasons why most people, reject the conversation, because I'm trying to think, well, what job am I going to have? Where am I going to work? How we live, how do we get a mortgage? But we don't, not knowing that most people in Jamaica don't have mortgages. Most people in Jamaica don't have jobs. They have businesses. Most people in Jamaica, all of that was foreign to me. So for me, I think that's why the conversation is hard, because you're trying to envision living in the new country the way you live in the U.S. And I'll give you a case in point. Jason and I were in Africa this past December, and one of our guides said to us, he says, people always say that people in Africa they only have $2 a day to eat. They only make $2 a day. They have nothing because they have $2 a day. They have to live off of $2 a day. And so the guide said to me, he said, we don't eat money, we eat food. What they don't tell you is it only costs $2 a day to eat a good meal. They don't say that. They're having you think about a meal in the United States and saying, what can I get for $2? Well, I can't get much. So in Africa, that means they're not eating much food. He says, but we don't eat money, we eat food. And so therefore, we don't need more than $2 a day to eat. In the same way it is in Jamaica. We don't eat, we eat literally off of our land. If I wanted to, I can go outside, get an avocado off the tree, get some ackee off the tree, buy some saltfish from the guy down the hill, and we would have a meal with just a cup full of flour and all of those other ingredients. We'd have a full meal. And if you boil that down to the value of that in US dollars, it's nothing. It's next to nothing. And so what we have to do is recognize that you don't live the way you live in the US, in these other countries. It doesn't require that. It just doesn't.
Okay. Anybody else want to add to that? Did anybody else have to be convinced to move abroad?
Leslie, how'd you convince Maria?
For us,
Yes, I was going to say, so our situation, as Maria said, was a lot different. I didn't have to do much convincing. Maria had visited here previously, and so because she's an adventurous spirit, she really was willing to give it a shot, you know. So I think it was the argument was pretty simple, and as I said previously, I think that Bermuda being I would call a hybrid, you know, you could always draw on the similarities that she would kind of understand. So some things like just the language, you know, so it's English, so you'll be comfortable there. You'd have to learn a different language, whatever. The proximity to the States was the key. So, you know, if you didn't like it, we can move back quickly. You know, we had, as I said, all the same products, things that you would recognize. Those aren't always pluses, but I think that as far as the arguments to move there, it always helps when you can draw on things that they can relate to.
Yeah, in the expat community, we talk about soft landing. So they're not having a language barrier is a soft landing. Having products or services that are familiar is a soft landing. You know, going to a community where you know at least one person can be a soft landing, or where you know that other Black people are. And I think that was something that kind of, or people that are in the same category, we are still gonna need to earn money. So that puts us different from the singles that are just traveling and the people that are retired. So that's kind of why we brought you guys together today, is because we are looking at what did it take. Loretta and Alan, when I said, you know, we're thinking about, they were like, what is there to think about? Like, it's obvious. But like, between the two of you, who was the first to kind of raise the issue, and how did you kind of start that conversation, you know, and get some momentum behind, we can leave this behind. We're not going to somebody, you know. So I think you all's situation is kind of very similar to ours, maybe.
Well, I'll say, I mean, to keep it brief, because I went a little longer the first time, it was almost like, Loretta, I'm tired. I mean, that, you know, that's pretty much it. I mean, you know, we're not, everything seems to be, you know, I heard, you know, the family over there in Bermuda, that was one of my big things. I said, you listen, it's too expensive. Now, I could never have even thought about going to Bermuda. I'm listening to it now. Wonderful. God bless you all. But I mean, like I said earlier, it seemed like you're always running and you're never able to stop. And and for me, that was, so something. I'll say this. This is my final statement I make. I've always preached one message to people when I talk to people about living, and that is, in this life you can only have one of two things. Either you can have security or you can have freedom, but you're not going to be given both of them at the same time. And
That
so
right
you've got to decide.
Now that's right. You said a word right there.
You said a word. That's what.
that you got to figure out what's most important.
Yes.
And what happens in America is that you're given the illusion of both of them, which is totally not true. You're not going to give them both. If you're going to be given the security in America, it comes at the cost of your freedom. And as I listen to the others, what I think we experience, and the same thing I'm listening to what they're saying, what we all saw was, you know what? Freedom means more to me than the safety. I'll make my own safety. I mean, I trust God for my safety in that regard, but I need freedom. Give me liberty or give me death. And whether we moved out into, the Atlantic or down in the Gulf or where we are even in Mexico, the point was we've got to be someplace where I can do what I believe is right. I don't have to follow what someone else is saying. I mean, I heard Carmen say about her boys. I don't have to feel like, my children have to follow what someone else is doing. I don't have to explain to them. Like right now, we have little children. We have 7-year-old twins. I don't have to explain to my 7-year-old twins right now, when the police truck rides past, they love waving at the police officers because here the police officers are the good guys. When they go down the street and they see people, they don't have to worry about, do these people like me? Do they not like me? I mean, it's so much different. My children, we don't even talk about what is a man or what is a woman. We don't have certain discussions because here it's not an issue. There are certain things that we just live with. And it's like, hey, this is what life is supposed to be like. And I mentioned it before. When I talked to Loretta, one of the big things that I mentioned was, listen, I'm tired of being, I feel like a slave. I feel like a freed slave while I'm still inside of the master's house. We're not able to receive anything. They give us chump change so they can tell us where we're supposed to spend it. They tell us where we can go. They tell us how far we can go. I mean, it doesn't work. It's not freedom. Once we cross the border, and I'll say this, once we finally did come and visit a couple of the cities, I know during COVID, a lot of the borders were closed. One of the things that most of us down here said, if the border closes again, make sure we're on the south side of the border. We don't want to get locked in on the north side. If we're going to get stuck, let us get stuck down in Mexico, where we still have freedom. We still have the ability to still just be people. We're not, and I'll say this, it's so, and for the other couples, you all are in areas that have a large portion of Black people, Black Americans or Black people from across the diaspora. We don't. And what I have realized is that in America, we're called African Americans.
Here we're Black.
Here, you're just a Black guy.
Actually, we're Blaxicans.
Blaxicans.
We've been adopted. We are now Blaxicans.
And
but
being a couple who still lives here, and our children are and our adults. They are 23 today, and 21 and 18. Our boys are 21 and 18. So every time they leave my house, every time they show up here after midnight, I don't sleep well. And it's not because it's not because they're in the streets and they're, it's just talking about they getting in the car, moving from one place to the next. I have a fear of them being around. When our youngest turned 18 a couple of weeks ago, he emotionally expressed his fear of being an 18-year-old now adult in America. He was with us when we went to Mexico in November at 17, so he could get his visas with us. And he and I walked the street one night. We had you get to eating good food. You want good food all the time.
I sent them out to get me some more.
We were on the streets, two Black men in the middle of Puerto Vallarta, no,
No,
in Mexico
Mexico
City
City.
at like 10, 11 o'clock at night, walking the streets. Nobody even saw us, paid us any attention. And I could see the freedom in his step. He wasn't even aware he had to feel that freedom. And I could see the freedom in my 17.
So when people are talking, a frequent question we get is safety. And you all have touched that individually, not just, I'm talking about the trigger, unlearning our triggers from a lifetime here and seeing your children not even have that. What a gift we are giving or can give through an Exodus experience.
I get to.
So I just want to say, I was listening to what Alan was saying and then listening to what Herman was saying. And it's interesting because Les and I haven't said very much because our experience and the reason why we're here is very different from the reason why you all are where you are. The reason why we have stayed where we are is very different from the reason why you all are where you are. We are not in Bermuda because we love it and because we want to live abroad and it's working for us. We are in Bermuda for the very reason that you all have just said. It really is literally for the safety of our sons. It literally is for that reason that I have stayed for so long, because I would have long since left if it wasn't for that, because the economy and it is so expensive to live here. The way that you feel, Alan, and how you talked about it, its effects, the reason that you left the United States. I want you to magnify that. I want you to magnify that by at least 3 times. And that is how we've been living for the past 22 years. And we are so much more than ready to go. And it is our plan A, has been our plan A. And our hesitation has been the safety of our sons.
Understood.
So I just wanted to put that in there just to say that we're not here because we love it.
I'm going to invite Carmen into this conversation because I did not recognize when we invited you all that we all have sons. I mean, that's come forward. And I remember Carmen having her youngest and hearing her talk about safety. And, you know, you're just living life. But then when you start paying attention, go ahead, darling. Carmen.
Well, I was going to say that, you know, when I first got to Jamaica, there was a sense of freedom. And this was the way I described it to my sisters. There's a sense of freedom that I couldn't explain. Like I couldn't necessarily put into words. And they were like, what do you mean freedom? I said, no, you don't understand. Like you can walk around, your kids can run away from you at a park loaded with people and you don't freak out that they're going to disappear or, you know, we had invited some family down last year, and my aunt who lives in DC got a word from the State Department that Jamaica was dangerous and be careful and all of this. And I was like, the nerve of them, because in Jamaica, no one has ever walked into a grocery store and shot the place up. No one has ever went into a school and just completely unloaded bullets on children. In Jamaica, no one has ever walked into a church and just indiscriminately shot people. We don't have active shooter drills in anywhere in Jamaica. So for the U.S. to have the audacity to tell my guests to be careful when they come to Jamaica because of the crime, I tell people all the time, in Jamaica, crime makes sense. If somebody shoot you, they meant to shoot you. They were aiming for you in Jamaica. There are places that you shouldn't go. Don't go there. But you can be at church and get killed in America. And that's the difference. So for me, the crime, yes, you can take it in the check, please. Thank you. Yes, thank you. The crime makes sense. It just makes sense. And I don't like it when people try to frame, especially these countries. And I've been to Mexico. I think Mexico has really gotten a bad rap. Sure, it's got its problems, but the U.S. is ridiculously hypocritical on this one point. I was in Walmart yesterday with my son because he's here with me, and I told him, "You do not leave my side. You want to go to the electronics section? We go together, but we stay together in Walmart. There is no, like in Jamaica, my kids, as soon as they hit the door of any store, they're like, Mommy, I'll meet you at the register. Not in Walmart. We don't do that in America because of the crime. It's amazing how people will frame it in America. I think an issue for me personally, and I know Jason could definitely speak to this, being Jamaican.
When our kids were little, and I would go to the store alone with them, there were always kids running around the store, and I would make the three of them hold on to the buggy, so they all had a place on the buggy. They could hold the buggy, and the youngest was nearest to me. The two oldest were at the front of the buggy, and they all had to have their hand on the buggy. They had to visually be on the buggy at all times. No matter where I was driving, they had to be on that buggy. And people would always say, "Oh, your kids are so well mannered and they're doing so well," and "Oh, a father with their kids." And what they did not know is I wasn't keeping my kids from running around. I was protecting them from them. I was protecting my children from the people who would say, "Oh, look at these little black kids running around all over the place," even though non-black kids were running around all over the place, tearing up stuff, knocking stuff off the shelves, sticking stuff in their pockets. And my kids are walking around jailed to the Walmart buggy that they wouldn't be accused of anything. And I feel so often that I've taught them to be jailed to safety, to jail to their safe space, so that they can't be the free spirits that they are. That speaking their mind is illegal. That having a difference of opinion is a crime. That every opportunity that I realize that protecting them has decreased them, gives me more want to help them find a way to make other decisions.
I want to say we've been talking about the freedom toward our children, but I can tell you we are leaving for the freedom for us. The ability to have more time that's not just invested in covering the bills, but growing ourselves. We've watched Jason and Carmen grow their own businesses. Alan and Loretta have talked to us about their business. Their businesses, not just business, their businesses that not just cover their basic expenses, but you're able to thrive in new ways, different ways. Leslie and Maria's voice business. I know hearing her talk about just having more space and time when you're not just leaning into what I have to do to stay alive. And I think where I want us to round out our discussion is, how have you found a better quality of life where you are? How do you feel like you've been able to make more space for your self-care, for your living, where outside of the United States? So
Right. Right. So I
okay,
was going to,
Leslie and Maria, you guys want to go first?
yeah, I was going to actually kind of say this earlier, and the conversation moved quickly away from it. But when you were talking about convincing the other partner, this came up in my mind as well. And it is stage of life, right? So there are certain things that are important to you in your 20s that are not as important in your 40s, whether you have kids or not, whether you're trying to work a career or something, or if you're 60 and you're trying to retire, right? So there are different things that you would look for. So, that's a very broad question, but I think that people who move to Bermuda tend to be a whole different type of person than the person that moves somewhere else. Because as Maria said, you don't really avoid the rat race. You don't avoid, some things that people move for later on in life. So most of the expats that come here are young, right? So they're 20, whatever, they're single, and they're trying to, work the corporate ladder thing, right? So those will be things they're trying to get international experience to take back to New York or to wherever, and to do that thing. So that's a whole different thought than if you're married with young kids, right? So there are some benefits that come, as Maria was saying, safety is one. And from a racial standpoint, it's also kind of different. So Bermuda, although it's close to the Caribbean, we're still 50-50 black-white, right? So there's still a large percentage of non-blacks on the island, and they have the same mentality as the non-blacks in other places, right? But I think that because they're not in the majority as they are in the States, they have to temper some of the ways that they behave. Yeah. But I think that it gives Black kids a taste, just a small taste, as to you have to keep your guard up, right? So everyone's not for you, and it may be popular to say certain things, being non-Black, but many of them don't actually feel that way. And so I haven't lived anywhere that's been a predominantly Black place. I've worked in Toronto. Of course, I've gone to school in the States, and there are different environments that are different. But being in a place where it's a majority Black, you get to experience different things. And then I said, then of course, if you're retiring, then that's a whole different conversation, right? So if you don't have kids to worry about, you don't have to be concerned about the police stopping them and doing whatever because you're 60 and you're walking for cane, then that's a different. Yes, 70, right? Because we're a long way from canes, right?
Oh my goodness.
But yeah.
I wanted to add to that now after the pandemic, there's so many people who are working remotely. Bermuda is a good place for those people who might have jobs who they don't mind you working remotely. You could still be, forward moving in your career and working in Bermuda. And so you're not necessarily going in the office every day, but you're working here and you're working your job, and you don't necessarily have to be in an office building per se, but you're here on the island. That's something new that they are offering and something new that's kind of been taking off here. And so 20s, 30s, that is, and that's young families, usually not just single people, but married couples, couples with no kids, or even kids who are kind of out of the house, those families. But if once they have young kids, then they kind of are looking for something different. They want their kids in school, and that adds a whole nother dimension. But they are still coming to the island, but that just adds a whole nother dimension of expense. And that's something you have to think about. And just one more thing before I finish is that the thing about moving anywhere, one thing that I think people need to consider is, yes, living there, the expense of living there. But like what Carmen is doing right now, she, how much does it cost to go back? So to come to Bermuda costs one thing, but to leave Bermuda costs a whole nother thing, because there's only one way to leave Bermuda. And because everything in Bermuda is 2-3 times more, you can expect that it'll be easier and less expensive for you to get to Bermuda than it will be for you to leave Bermuda. And so those types of things as an expat are things that you have to take into consideration. How often will I be able to travel back to see my family? Take those little hops. It's a quick hop, but how often will I be able to do it because I'm living here and going back there? Those little things make a difference.
Got it.
Absolutely. Digital nomad visas are in all your places. We checked. We are very happy that allows us to continue to work remote.
Yes.
And hits our age very well. The pandemic was a game changer. I think we've developed, our managers have developed more confidence that we can still produce while we're remote. And I've been 100% remote for 3 years. It's a really difficult drive to say, nope, you really need to be in the office to do your work effectively. So I think the digital nomad visa option is opening doors for people at all levels. And so especially it was easier for us to get residency in Mexico than to even look for a digital nomad option. So Loretta, Alan, did you guys want to, kind of give your closeout thoughts about your quality of life in Mexico? What is not just what brought you there, but what's keeping you there?
I think they're frozen.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if they were frozen or just on mute. Jason and Carmen, while we wait for them to be able to come back.
Sure. If I had it my way, I would have Leslie Maria probably in Ochi right now talking. Alan Loretta probably in Mobay, and the two of you maybe someplace on the south coast of Jamaica at this point in time.
We were saying that, like, maybe we need to Jamaica.
So I'm sorry, the power just went out. So I don't know what's going on, but the power just went out. But I wanted to say something before we close. Oh, there it is. Just came back on. The safety perception about Mexico. A lot of people are always hearing, "Oh, the cartel this, the cartel that." I'm not saying they don't exist, but like anywhere else, they are very organized. And if you don't put yourself there, there's nothing to worry. So with our kids would leave our home 8, 9, 10. Our son used to play basketball. At midnight, he would walk home by himself at midnight. Never in the United States would I have done it. Never, 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 ever. So, I mean, just that alone. And then our daughter, you know, she would go up the street just to go get a little snack.
A teenager.
And I would never let her do that on her own. So just being here opened up that door for us to give them to the safety that we felt for them. As far as the quality.
I mean, and I'll say as far as the quality, I'll speak this, and Loretta knows a lot more. And I think I heard Jason say it a little while ago in regards to the food. I mean, we're eating food, and we can actually survive. You know, you're not worrying about eating things that are going to kill you. Everything that we eat is organic, because you know the fish come from down the street, the chickens come from the backyard of the guy behind us. You know, the fruit is grown out on the street. I mean, it's there. Reason
the chicken. Quick story. the chicken wings. When we were in Guadalajara, they told us, "Oh, it's going to take 45 minutes to cook." We're like, 45 minutes? Why?
45 minutes to cook
the chicken wings. And after, you know, we went about an hour to get our chicken wings, and we like pulling like the little hairs and little strings from it. No, they meant fresh chicken wings, not the stuff that we get from the States, chicken wings. And these are not massive chicken wings. They're little. So we know
from real chicken.
Normal size.
They're
normal size of normal size chickens.
Yes, absolutely. So I mean, so as far as food, I mean, we never worry about the quality of food. As a matter of fact, when we go to the States, there are things I don't and will not eat in the States ever. I can taste the actual difference of the food. I don't eat the meat there at all. When I go back to the States, don't eat meat. Some of the vegetables I even stay away from. We may get some things from the States, but what we've tried to do was try to incorporate everything here and stop depending on what we had in the States and just start new, start fresh, get a new taste for something so we don't have to keep looking backwards, you know, so.
And I said it earlier, I mean this again, quality of life, I don't own a watch.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and sometimes we forget the days of the week.
Every day of the week, it's like, what's today's date?
What's today? Don't know, can't follow, we don't know what happens in the U.S. in terms of the news. It's our parents or some friend, oh, did y'all hear? I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I don't follow the news. So we actually don't know what happens in the States, you know? And so I prefer to keep it that way.
It's funny, that's different because I think I forget days of the week here because I'm working so much. It's just the days run together.
No, not for us.
The days just run together. And after a while, I'm just like, I know Fridays and Saturdays because I structure my week so that I don't work Fridays and Saturdays because I know Sunday is coming and Sunday is going to be a heavy day. I remember when Sunday used to be an off day. Remember when Sunday used to be an off day? When we spent 2 weeks in Mexico and I was just like, if I have to work another day, like I just worked, I will be poorer so that I can have the freedom to not kill myself. You know, being 50 this year and having the health scares that I've had before this year, that's not something I take lightly. And you know, we went down. Baby girl's vegan. We went down. And I was like, when I get to Mexico, I'm gonna have me some this taco, and I'm gonna have some of that meat, and I'm gonna have it. And everything we ordered was vegan. We went to vegan restaurants only. When I'm talking about, we ate like kings and queens.
Our teenage son, 100% said, please, all vegan restaurants.
And I mean, we dug in. And here's the funny thing: we were. And it's 3 points on that. We ordered like we weren't coming back to that restaurant. We order here, we split a plate.
Yeah, we get an appetizer. I mean, we don't get appetizers. We don't get desserts. We don't get drinks. We don't get anything but the entree.
We ordered everything, and we spent 2/3 less, and we never felt bloated and worn out and weighed down, and we didn't have to sit at the table 30 minutes so we can make our walk back to our Airbnb. It was like, let's get up, let's go, let's move. And
that's so different.
That is what I'm chasing. So I will be in Mexico. I will be down in Jamaica, and we're gonna get y'all out of Bermuda. I want you to know. I want you to know. Having you in this discussion was not just, hey, things are great when you move away. I want people to see that there are some places that
Yes.
it does not always work out, and we are still making choices because something. But at the core of it, you saying to me, we're willing to sacrifice a little bit of freedom here for the safety of our children. That's a big deal. It tells you where we are as people of color and what we are willing to risk, and what we are no longer willing to risk for the safety of the legacy of our families. That's a big deal to me.
Yeah. Jason?
If I can say this, you talked about opportunities in business. Living here in the Caribbean, prior to this, we lived in Panama for 2 years. Lived in many other countries as well. I want to say this about opportunities. You mentioned this, Herman, about your kids holding on to the basket. Simply means that your energies have to be channeled there to focus on their safety, when in reality, it would be nice if our kids have the freedom, because that freedom in the mind allows you to think, ideas start to flow. When you have to channel it in a negative arena, it doesn't happen. So what happens for us, and I sure that Alan, Loretta, and Leslie Maria can relate, living outside, the ideas start to come. You see opportunities at hand, and ideas formulate. The benefit for us living here is that just walking around, Carmen said, you know what? The vast majority of the women here have natural hair. When the came out, that phenomenon where now we're catering to our natural look, we decided to capitalize on that, and so we started our own hair and skincare line right here on the island. The beauty of it is, last week we're sitting out to dinner eating, and while we're eating, our kids see a playmate and they walk over there, and the couple that are there, we get a chance to meet, and it just so happens that the father is the CEO of the largest distribution company on the island. See, but when you live in a place like the US, the CEO lives in Wisconsin someplace, in Idaho, in the West Coast. He's not in your backyard. Those individuals are here. So they say, how can I help you? They want to see you succeed. You see.
Wow.
The beauty that you have of living in the US. I'm saying I'm living there now. The moment that one decides to come out and go to any other country, they're looking to you to set up some sort of business or operation. Why is it that I don't care where you go in the world, there's going to be a Chinese restaurant? Am I right? You'll even see Lebanese in a lot of places. But why can't we find a soul food restaurant in those same countries? Why can't we be soul vegetarian for that? Because we're not there, we're absent. Because the idea simply says to us, well, if I live in Birmingham, then maybe I can do something in Atlanta. But why not think of Mexico? Why not think of another country where that could be set up, where people are yearning to try your food or whatever the idea may be? So for us now, we've expanded. We were in Ghana in this past December, looking at options there to set up our operations. And now we just sent our first products last week to Nairobi, Kenya. And so now we are in that market. And so this is a breath of fresh air, but that would have never happened for us. We would have looked at all the US companies and said, you know what, they have a foothold. But because we're here, because we have the network here, everybody's willing to help at the end of the day. And
I hear
that's
you
what I want to say to everybody.
I hear you coming from it, Jason. I heard your secret message you was throwing my way. I didn't miss it. I didn't miss it because people ask me.
You missed that one.
I didn't miss it. People ask me all the time, how come you haven't opened your restaurant? How many times you done this? When we talk about moving, she was like, are you going to open something abroad? And I was just like, nobody. I hear you.
I don't care where you move it, where you have it. If you have a restaurant like that anywhere outside the U.S., it will do well. Anywhere. A lot of Bermuda. I remember my cousin Carolyn. You guys know my cousin Carolyn's married to Shannon.
Right.
And she's out there, and because she's coming from Union Island in the Caribbean here, and just talked about opportunities that she saw there in Bermuda for her and for herself and her family. So it doesn't matter wherever you are outside the U.S., the opportunities are going to be there for you. You just have to be willing to take the leap at the end of the day, as the couples that are on have all just done that.
He just shut it down, y'all. He just wrapped
it right up.
He just muscle on that. There you go. I am honored to have had you all, my family, my friends, longtime family and friends, on with us today. It has been a blessing to hear you share your story with our audience about the opportunities that the world has for people of color. We thank you for the people who have shown up today to watch us, for the people in our comment section, Martina Wood, Bubs. We appreciate you and your comments. We encourage you all to share this video. Again, if you're new or even if you're returning, subscribe to our page, like on this video, hit the notification bell. And when you hit these countries, look these people up, dig them up, find them, shake them, knock a ring on their door, make them serve you some.
Anytime.
Yeah. They all know. We love you for life.
Thank you all so much. Like we said, this is a journey, and as we are learning, we enjoy sharing. So thank you guys so much for sacrificing a part of your Saturday to be with us, and we'll see you next week.
From Agent D Abroad, have a good week.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, guys.